Well, good afternoon. I hope you've had a wonderful summer of rest and relaxation and nice warm weather. I'm Barbara Jean, and this is the Joy Show where being who you are authentically is celebrated. And I'm so excited to be back with a new season. Well, let us begin with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are honored to be living, working, and playing on lands that have been stewarded for a millennia by the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that as we continue to grow and expand on these lands, there is still unresolved and dangerous inequality and discrimination toward our Indigenous, BIPOC, and 2S LGBTQ plus family. By making these acknowledgements, we strive to be allies and to take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Well, I am so excited today to have with me the remarkable Pat Clarkson and her work, Mindful Retirement. This is focusing on the transition stage of moving from work life structure to retirement life structure. Hmm, I'll tell you. Well, she's got some great information for us because I don't think we planned so well for this stage of life. Help me to welcome Pat. Hey, I'm so
Hi,
glad you
Rick.
said
How are
yes.
you?
I am very good. I am very good. It has been a week. It's been a summer of change and move. And so tell us about this idea of mindful retirement. I mean, where did that come from?
Oh, well, I retired a few years ago and I thought, oh, I've caught the brass ring on the merry-go-round and I've got the free ride. And I put my watch in my dresser drawer and I canceled my cell phone.
Oh,
I no more work calls for me. And after I guess you call it honeymoon stage, the fun of being absolute freedom, time was I had so much time walking, but I couldn't walk all day.
yeah.
So I went back to school for 3 years. And
Okay.
that's what I did. And then after that, I thought, when I got my diploma, I thought, I can't keep going back to school till I die.
Yeah.
I've got to figure out this retirement thing. So I took a year off from projects, volunteering, and people would say, "Oh, Pat, come on, you could really help us." And it was a struggle not to get involved, but I knew if I got involved, I wouldn't look at what I needed to do, which was what was my retirement going to be like and what was going to be my purpose.
Right.
So COVID hit, went through that transition and made it through okay. Um, Took me a while to get back into circulation. And then what happened was I had shared with some people that I had really struggled with retirement. one one man came up to me and said, "Yeah, I lasted 6 months and said I can't handle this sitting in the apartment." He said, "I went back to my old job." And then I
Mhm.
got a call from my husband's and one of our friends, and he said, "My wife is retired and she's not doing good. Could you have her for coffee?" So I asked her over, and she had had a really intense, highly dynamic job for many years.
Yeah.
And she sat in my living room and she just said to me, "I don't know what to do." And she said, "And I don't know how to answer my coworkers when they say to me, 'Oh, it's so exciting. You've retired. It must just be the best life you can have.'" And she said, "I don't know how to tell them that I don't know what to do." And
Mm.
so those kind of things would come up. I had a girlfriend come to me and her husband had to retire because of disability. And she is now the basic breadwinner. And her husband is struggling because he'd always been the breadwinner in the home, but he
Yeah.
makes less than her now on retirement. So these things were popping up and I turned 70 this year and I thought, and I had a corporate job for just
Mhm.
under 25 years and then resigned to start my own business. So I had been an entrepreneur, but I thought, am I to start a business at 70? So it was the big question, like 70. And so I have a really strong spiritual background. So I said to the universe, if I am to start this business, you're going to have to give me a sign, and it's going to have to be a sign that I know there's no doubt, because I am 70. So I went for a walk last November. We'd had snow already, but it was a beautiful winter day. And I went for a walk, and this woman who I've never met before was walking down the street towards me. And I said, "Oh, hi, how are you today?" And with great anguish, she said, "I'm supposed to retire, and my kids want me to babysit. They're so excited because now I can work Monday to Friday for them babysitting." And she looked at me, Barb, and she said, "I don't want to babysit." And then the tears came, and she said, "I'm not retiring." And she turned around and walked away. I have no idea who she is, never saw her again. And I just looked at the universe, up at the universe, and said, I guess I am to create a business about helping people to retire.
Well, and it's such an interesting topic because, like you say, people think, oh, yeah, work has ended. I can sleep
Yes.
in. I mean, nobody at our age sleeps in. Not that I know of anyway. It seems like we have trouble sleeping more than 4 hours. So
Right.
there's always something interrupting it. And there's this idea that somehow, life is going to be a life of leisure, but it doesn't tend to be that because sometimes there isn't enough money.
Yes.
Other times it's like you say, what am I going to do? And that idea of falling back into work, like the thought of retirement actually for me scares me completely. Like I can't imagine what retirement would be like. That just baffles my mind completely. And then I hear of all these people who retire and then within 6 months to a year die.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and it's like, and healthy people, like not
Yes.
people who are sick, but
Mm-hmm.
healthy people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there really is something here for you.
Well, and and the research is so interesting. Like I was just reading one of the new terms is longevity literacy.
Okay.
And what they're saying is that a few years ago, people would retire and their lifespan was 20 years.
Right.
But now they're projecting where most people can live to 100.
Right.
And they're saying if you're going to live for 40 years, you need to have a purpose. You need to plan your retirement. And planning doesn't mean it's rigid. To me, our retirement I don't think there's any musts in retirement. I
Right.
believe when I retire, I'm going to choose my responsibilities. Like I moved home from the coast to be here to help care for my mom who has
Yeah.
dementia. That's not a must. That's a choice of responsibility.
Yeah.
And the other thing I believe about retirement is that everything's up for renegotiation. Like
Yeah.
even this grandparent role,
Mm.
learning how to negotiate with your children what it's going to look like, because you're never going to not be a grandparent, but what's it going to look like? The other
Yeah.
thing is if you volunteer, I use this, you may have volunteered during pre-retirement, but now you're going to have more time.
Yeah.
Do you want to increase your hours? Do you want to volunteer somewhere else? Have you ever wanted to go into it? Like the world's open. Do you want to go do acting? It's whatever makes it work. But one of the things that's important is to discover what makes you happy and what brings you joy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of the main thing, right? Because when you talk about purpose, when I think about my purpose, it's what is the thing that really fires me up? Like what draws my attention? And I look at all the places where I volunteer. And that's where I'm passionate about. Those are the things that I'm really, really passionate. And I'm passionate about my career as well. But the
Mhm.
the outside things that some people might look at the amount of volunteering I do and go, where do you find the time? But it's not even about finding the time. It's like, I'm so passionate about it, I can't imagine not doing it. So I find the space for that. And I
Mhm.
think having passion is key to longevity.
Yes, yes.
That keeps us moving.
And I think in pre retirement, we have had roles. like we have a job and we have a specific description for that job. Oh, thank you so much, because I'm a visual learner. So when I went to start this business, I thought I have to see it. So this is what I drew.
I
So
love that.
so I'm sitting there with
Location.
my mind map and I'm going, oh, okay, yes, education, volunteer. Yeah. Now I don't have children, wasn't able to, but people do in relationships. And
Yeah.
then I started to look at it and I went, oh, each one of those has like a description, maybe a societal description, like
Mhm.
having children. There's expectations, general expectations of how you treat your children, what you provide them with, education. You're going to go to school. So what I realized was that each of these had a description and a structure. So the structure came in my life
Yeah.
from these roles. I could choose them,
Mhm.
but in essence, I stepped into a defined structure. So I decided, after looking at this, I was just really good at juggling a lot of structures. I wasn't really, I could choose my job, but I stepped into a structure. And the other thing, when you talk about purpose, what I also thought of was that when I'm in one of these structures, it usually defined my purpose, because not everyone has a life purpose from the time they're young, or we find it.
Yeah.
But in education, it may have been that I want to be the top 3 in my class, so I have the best jobs. I want my chance at the best career jobs. And it may be at work. It is, I need to be a good employee because I want to retain this. I want to be a good employee because I want to advance to a certain level.
Yeah.
So that became my purpose. So when I turned to the other side and did post retirement, I realized everything is up for negotiation, because what do I want to do? And all of a sudden, like I read a stat that like 80% of our time was usually work, when you take into preparing for it, going to work, work itself, and you take that out. And the other thing I realized was I didn't know what I wanted to do, what brought me joy, that would be my purpose, and what brought me structure. So, one of the things I do and what I offer within the mindful retirement is I ask you to think of your absolute favorite activity you've ever done, even if you don't do it today. Just anything. What is the most favorite thing in your life that you just go, wow? And then I ask you, pardon?
Dancing.
Dancing. Okay, here it is. I want you to go into your mind dancing, Barbara Jean. Just go in there, be there.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to ask you some questions,
Mhm.
and I'm going to let you you don't have to share them if you don't want to, but as you are dancing, what are the thoughts that you see in your mind?
The first one is freedom. There's
Oh,
a the music kind of carries me away. And so there's a real sense of freedom was kind of the loudest thing
that's good.
that popped up for me was, and I can't tell you the last time I danced.
Oh, well. Okay, so the next question I'd ask you as you're on the dance floor in your mind is,
Mm,
what are the emotions you are feeling as you
mhm.
are dancing?
And of course, the biggest one is joy.
Okay.
It just feels alive and vibrant, and but joy, joy, joy. Yeah.
Okay. And then I have one more question for you, which is,
Okay.
so back in the dancing,
Mhm.
what are the body sensations you are experiencing? What's your body saying to you?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Because I think one of the greatest challenges we get into that retirement age is we slow down, but I don't think we have to.
No, we don't.
I don't think we have to, and I think that's one of those stories that we've told ourselves or we've been told, and I think that's Because when I start dancing, because I haven't been doing it, I'm sure if I get up and start dancing right now, I'm going to be feeling a little tired fairly quickly, where I used to be able to dance all night. But if I did it every day, even
Mhm.
5, 10 minutes, but the minute music comes on, I'm tapping my toes, I'm snapping my fingers, I'm singing along. Like I'm just, it really revs me up. So that's a
Yes.
great exercise. I like
Well,
that.
but I'm not done. I'm going to tell
Oh,
you the
okay.
second part, because some of us cannot do maybe what we want anymore
Right.
for
Yes.
whatever reason.
Mhm.
And so what I have is, so I have a worksheet that you can fill in your answers there. And then I give you another worksheet, and it's about the possibilities. Because once
Mm.
mindful retirement is based on, you need to become aware. You need to become aware of retirement, some of the processes that can help you, but then you have possibilities. So on this worksheet, you have a column called possibilities, and then
Yeah.
you have a column called um, thoughts, and then feelings, and then body sensation, and then comments. And then I just say to you, what are some things you'd like to try? Just brainstorm, blue sky, you list them down, the possibilities. And
Mm.
then let's say you want to try one. So I say, you got to research, you got to try it. So I'll tell you what I tried. I tried Tai Chi. I went for a year, and I'd always imagined myself on the ocean, right on the shore. And I
Yeah.
went for a year, and I could never remember beyond the first move. And I went for a year because you're supposed to no. But what did I get out of it? And this is why the comments. I got a mother and daughter friends that had me over for Christmas dinner because I wasn't able to make it home to Saskatchewan.
Oh.
The other thing I tried was pottery. Well,
Okay.
let's I did ceramics well when I was young, so I thought pottery'd be no. So I'm so glad I have a best friend who took one of my pieces and showed it in her kitchen for years until I took it back. And she'd say, "Oh, my best friend gave that to me." And I go, but what I did discover I love is I love going to the gym and lifting weights. I did, and
Mm.
if you had told me that, so what you do is you choose one, you experience it, and then you look at your thoughts, your feelings, and your body sensation, and say, did I get any of those? We'll never have 100% of those because dancing is your passion.
Yeah.
But if we can find some that give us some of one of them, even a couple of them,
Yeah.
we're going to have more joy in our life in retirement.
And for me, it's the gym. The
Oh,
gym really does, and, I'll have my headphones on with either music or a podcast, and, yeah, the gym really, until I got into my move, I was going to the gym 6 days a week,
mhm.
and since my move, just trying to get the house organized, set up, all that, I haven't gone back, so I've gotta go back because I really, really love going to the gym.
You mentioned something about as we get older, we slow down.
Yeah.
One of the personal things I discovered, I went to care for my elderly uncle who has Parkinson's, so his family, who he lives with, could go to Disneyland.
Mhm.
The first morning I get up, and I get in this young couple's bathtub. There's no railing. There's not even a soap dish to hang on to. And
Yeah,
I thought, I don't know if I can do my feet or I'll fall. So
yeah,
the next morning I decided I just stuck my feet under the shower and said, that's all you're going to get the whole week I'm here because I'm too afraid. And
yeah,
I thought, they don't have any railings or anything to hang on because they're fearless. And I used to be fearless.
yeah,
And then I thought about it and I thought, I still am. It's just different. Fearless to me is acknowledging what's going to help me in my retirement to be fearless.
yeah,
So I went and had the little bit of vitamins and meds I take bubble packed,
yeah,
saving me time. I don't have to sit and count. I just do it. I'm
yeah,
going to get myself a lifeline because I'm a widow and I live alone so
yeah,
that I can have the freedom. So
exactly.
so I went downstairs and said to my uncle who has Parkinson's, just what I shared with you. And he looked at me and he said, you're right. Because he's living fearlessly every time he gets up to walk with his walker. And
Yes,
he feels so good because he can still get around.
yeah,
So Yeah, I'm still fearless and I'm 70. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love because I think that idea of fearlessness, it's really about the courage to really do what we know we can, to have the sense to acknowledge that maybe there's some things we can't, but there's other ways of doing it. And like when I had my double hip replacements, it's like, I was walking with a walker. And a lot of people my age would have thought, I'd be embarrassed to walk with a walker, but I wasn't at all. It was like, no,
Mhm.
I have to move, and the only way I can do it is with a walker right now. And now, of course, I'm free of all that, so
Yeah.
I'm like super grateful. But it's that journey of acknowledging and having the courage to try rather than just to shut down because it's like,
Mhm.
well, I don't know if I can. It's like, what can I do? So,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that.
Us. Us. So the other thing is in retirement, I think I went to 20 years ago, I went to a retirement talk, and the speaker said that we are given a gift of time in retirement.
Mhm,
We know that it's the last phase of our life,
mhm.
but he said it is a gift of time. And I believe it is also, and many people don't get to experience it. So it's a precious gift. And we come into it with our experience and wisdom.
Yes.
People used to say to me, "Do you want to be a teenager? Don't you want to be a teenager every day?" And I go, "Oh, no, thanks." But you know what? I think that's kind of what these years might be like, because
Mhm.
teenagers are figuring out their life, and but they don't have wisdom and experience. We're figuring out what's going to be the end of our life journey. We're going to make it the best we can because we have wisdom and experience. And I also know that he said that we should all be of an age where being judged doesn't matter anymore. Just,
Yes. Aren't those the best years of all where it's like,
I
what
know.
you think of me, none of my business.
Well, and so my pottery didn't work, and my thing on the clay turning thing really was a disaster, and there's lots of students. So what?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that because I think that for me is the biggest win at the age that I'm at, because I'm 66 now.
Hmm.
And it's like looking at life through a different lens. It's like
Yes.
what you think of me, number one, is none of my business because, frankly, it has nothing to do with me. What you think of me is your projection onto me of what's comfortable for you or what you believe about life. So really, so I look at teenagers and stuff today and I'm like, if I could tell you two things, one is you'll probably never look better than you do right now. So love yourself. And secondly, what anybody says about you or thinks about you has got nothing to do with you. And yet, of course, I say that, but they don't really believe me. But it's the truth, It's like if I have a judgment on you, it's coming from my perception of
Yes.
reality. And there's no fact in that, there's no truth in that.
No.
It's just my projection. So, yeah, yeah, that's the big blessing at this age.
I many years ago I saw a security guard in the winter going through the crosswalk when the light was green, and the car came around and hit him, and it flew him 20 feet. So I just went over and held him. He wanted to get up, and I said, "Don't, please don't get up." And then we happened to have a nurse and a doctor. And at that point, I swore, at the age of 80, I'm getting a club, like a nice looking stick, but it's still a club. And every time somebody comes into the crosswalk, I'm going to hit the car because I don't think they'll come after an 80-year-old woman. So I remember that way back when, saying, when I'm 80, I'm going to be there waiting for these people that come through on a green, red light when somebody's walking. So yeah, so
Well,
I have in my workbook I put a picture of a woman, quite an elderly woman, with that and said, "That's
well,
mine."
it happens a lot, and they've changed the lights here in Toronto a little bit. That when the lights turn red, they don't turn green for the other traffic right
Oh,
away, but the walk light goes first. and everything is still red, and the walk light has a couple of seconds. The other thing is they made a rule which nobody's following, but if you enter a crosswalk with your vehicle and there's a pedestrian in it, doesn't matter if they're 1 foot from the other side, there's, I think, $150 fine for simply entering a crosswalk while there's a pedestrian in it. Anywhere along the way. So I know they're trying to, because of course here in Toronto, there's a lot of accidents like that. And I've
Yes.
known people who've been hit and who spend like a year in recovery trying to get over the injuries just because somebody came flying through and didn't pay attention. So yeah, I don't blame you. Carry a big stick and keep walking. Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, we're going to take a little commercial break here, and then we're going to be right back. So stick around. You're watching The Joy Show on the New Thought Media Network, and my remarkable guest, Pat Clarkson. We'll be back.
I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made beautifully. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Wish we'd all stop acting like we're strangers if we could see underneath. We are one family, and it don't matter where you come from. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love, one love, one love. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change.
Blessings, everybody. My name is Jafon Seeley. Could you imagine what is actually possible when we start honoring and recognizing our inherent worth, realizing that we are that which is assisting and co-creating our experience? And with that understanding, start recognizing that every human, every individual, everything that we interact with reflects that same inherent worth.
It's not about an adventure, it's about the atmosphere of the consciousness of adventure, the lifestyle of adventure. How many people would say that their lifestyle is adventurous?
My name is Lisa Benson. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and the author of Anchored in Bias, Fired Over White Tears. It's a book detailing my lived experiences with workplace bias and what fueled my passion for normalizing conversations about differences and creating safe spaces for everyone to bring the best version of themselves to life every day.
And welcome back. I'm Barbara Jean, and this is my incredible guest, Pat Clarkson. And oh, it was so great to see that new labyrinth at Unity Village. I was
Mhm.
watching the gentleman build that a year ago
Are you?
in the like 40-degree heat, and he's out there laying each stone with such precision and such love, and it was remarkable to watch. I couldn't stand out there for as long as him, but he was working in it. And then when I was there this year, it was all complete and it's
Mm.
spectacular. So next steps. I mean, what can people expect if they, if they log onto your website and they have some questions and they want to reach out to you? What is what is it that you do? What kind of things can they look forward to?
I have developed processes to, just like the one we went through, to help people work through the issues, because purpose is a major one. Like, what's going to get me out in the morning? Because that does occur at some point. Legacy. I've discovered that
Oh,
the people I've been talking to see legacy as financial, and it's it is an important part of this. But legacy occurs while you're still living. And for
right.
them, it's been an eye opening that part of their legacy is the gifts of themselves and the values they bring, who they are. Um, a few years ago, I wrote letters to my nephews and nieces and said, if I could give you one thing, and it's much like what you said, Barbara
Oh,
Jean, is
I
that
love that.
you are enough, always enough, and let no one tell you that you aren't. That and and that was part of my legacy. And when I told that to a gentleman in his 80s, he was quite surprised. And then he shared me that he'd been giving each of his grandchildren when they turned 16 a book, and it was a book that was like about finding themselves. And I said, well, that's a legacy.
Yeah,
And so we enter those discussions. And my job is to have thought provoking questions because I have no answers. The answers are all inside. My
right.
job is to develop the processes and to ask the thought provoking. So you can have a one on one with me in person over Zoom. And
Yeah.
then between the next session, and they're hour sessions,
Hmm.
there's access to me via email, text, and I just come back with more questions, because that's, as people start to go within, they kind of pause and take a look. And like someone said to me, oh, this person likes me because I'm just really nice. And my question back was, what made them say you were nice? And then they said, well, I always let them come talk to me because they had someone was bullying them at work. I said, oh, okay. And why would that be nice? And the person finally looked at me. She said, I make spaces safe for people to come to me. I don't judge them. Now, it started out with, I'm nice. But when we realized that inside, that like the look on our face was like, that's me. Because so much of our pre retirement, in many ways, is focused externally. But within us are so many gifts that, oh, okay, okay. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think, the way you ask the questions and uh, allow for that space for a person to come to their own answer, because
mm-hmm,
the truth is, no one knows you, nobody knows me except us, hopefully.
mm-hmm,
And most often we
mm-hmm,
don't know ourselves. We've got all these veils from all these people who said, well, you can do this and you can't do that, and this is right and that's wrong. And so we get all confused. But the answers are all inside us.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that.
Like my mom, at the start of her dementia, she phoned me and she said, what is my purpose? Like, her whole life had been spiritual based and, an involvement in that. But so we talked. And we came up with the conclusion, my mom is a prayer warrior. When she was
Mm,
going to church, she was on a prayer team.
yeah.
And then now, even in her dementia, I will phone her and say, Mom, I need prayers. She'll write it in a journal. And at that moment, she will pray for the person. But that, knowing she was a prayer warrior, I had a very good friend I went to see in a retirement home. And when I was waiting for her, she's coming out of the dining room in her wheelchair, or automatic electric wheelchair. And
Yeah.
this woman was by and she said, Oh my, you look so lovely. I love how you got your hair done. And then we went into a private area and she looked at me and she said, Pat, why am I still here? Because she had been clinically dead 3 times and brought back over the year. And I said, want you to think about that woman, Linda. You bring goodness to the world. You notice the good in everyone. You have for the 40 years I've known you. You see the good and you reflect it back to them. And she looked at me and said, thank you. So, it's those things. And interestingly enough, what I'm discovering is it's those inside things that people start to say and realize are their legacy.
And I
That's
think
their legacy.
that's such an important point, because I know with people I've worked with over the last, I've been doing this for about 30 years. And in that time, I often get people who are like, well, I don't know, I don't know what's unique about me. I don't know what's special about me. And you can sit back and you can begin to see the natural gifts they have, the way they just naturally are giving, or the way they are just naturally supportive or complimentary, or all of these things that they do that allows for people around them to feel so much better.
Yes.
And you don't realize that, maybe you have your own struggles, but you're providing a gift to these other people. And, maybe the reason you're here is because you're going to lift someone. Like, we don't know the impact we have on each other.
No.
I love that. I love that. That's
Like when my husband was dying, he just said, what have I done for the world? And he was 53 when he died. And his question was, what have I done? And I remember sitting with him and he said, like, I've not invented anything. What have I given? And through our conversation, questioning, I said, we came up with, he's a real good dad. Real good dad. And that kind of centered him. So 6 months after he died, I had a coffee with his youngest daughter.
yeah.
And she said to me, do you know what my dad gave me? I said, no, I have no idea. She said, he taught me how to say I'm sorry. She said, I wouldn't have learned that otherwise. So I now know how to say I'm sorry. So we really tend to minimize our gifts, and we all have them.
Oh, of course we do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's finding them like the awareness of them. I see retirement as coming in a box. Here's your retirement. Hello, I'm retired on the side.
Yes.
And I believe mindful retirement is cracking the lid of that box with awareness. That's how I visualize mindful retirement.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because it's so true that the natural gifts that we have, that we were born with, you didn't just find them, didn't just create them, they were always there. It's like somehow throughout the journey, we have gone, well, that's really easy, so that can't be important. But what's easy for me is not necessarily easy for you. And so you're going to look at what's easy for me going, oh man, that's awesome. I wish I could do that. But we're all doing that. We're all looking at somebody else's gift going, oh, look what they've got. Grass is greener on the other side of the fence. What we need to realize is we got a whole lot of lawn going on here. That's beautiful. Oh, I love that. I love that. Just finding that thing. I think of my youngest daughter, who, my husband was the main caregiver because my work has always been so intense, and she has a very lovely nature. She's very like she's fierce and she's committed and she is absolutely an activist, but everything she does with this tender, clear, respectful way. And he taught her, well, even when she was little, like we started at about 8 months old teaching her sign language. And we taught her please and thank you were some of the first things that she was taught. And so all through her growing up years, she's 18 now, but it's like all through those years, it's like the idea of being polite and respectful was really anchored in her. And Pierre said to me the other day, they were at a drive-through or something, and he said, I was just in awe of how she spoke to the person, um, over the little intercom
Mhm.
where it's sometimes hard to hear or whatever. Like she just has a sweetness about the way she interacts. And that came from him. That came from him for sure. And it's, the little things we give that are just kind of natural for us, but what a gift to the other individual when they get to put it to use. So, mm,
I do want to ensure that I talk about some of the external things that
mhm.
can happen in retirement. And that's how I treat them. I make them aware of what is possible. And then if any of them hit, and one of them is that uh, it's kind of a loss of friendship, a work friendship with our colleagues. It isn't that they aren't your friends anymore, but when you're working with them, you are going for coffee, you're part of the organization you work for, it becomes more intimate. And
Yes,
when you leave, they're not, you're not part of it anymore. So there can be a shift in friendships.
yes.
As I said, the spouse that's retired and the other spouse that's still working, it can also be learning to live together again.
Yeah.
Um, it's very hard if you've had a position of authority or um, a really important job that sometimes you wonder who you are. I had one man say to me,
Mm.
he said, and he created his own very successful business. And he said, I retire and I go to Coffee Row and I meet someone and they say, well, what do you do? He said, how do I answer that? Because our identity is tied to it.
Tied to the profession.
Yeah. So it's, there's things like that that I make them aware of so that they can, if they're experiencing that, you can go get help and work through it or whatever. But we do focus on that in one of the sessions, just make them aware.
Well, that's so important because we do define ourselves by the roles that we hold. You
Mm-hmm.
ask somebody, oh, tell me what you do. Well, immediately we go to work. And if we're not employed somewhere, there's even women who or men who are the caregivers of the family, the raising the children or whatever. It'll be, well, I don't do anything. I'm sorry. You do more than the one who's at work, probably. But there's that idea of, I have to do something outside of the house to give it meaning or worth or value,
Mm-hmm.
which, we need to change that idea. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we do define ourselves by what we do rather than who we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that must be part of that shift in retirement is going, really, who am I when I take the label off or take the
That's
job
right.
out of the mix? Who am I?
Like when I found that label that said, hello, I'm retired, I took it and I took a red line across it and wrote the word, hello, I am alive. So one of the things I'm going to ask people is when you're done all this,
Ah,
'cause, and what are you going to be? Write it. But mindful retirement has basically three sections. It's the structure, actually working on the structure that we were focusing on, the transition, legacy, and purpose. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some have dealt with one or two of those. So they only have to take that one module.
yeah.
And I call it, where is the pain point at that moment?
Well, and that's an interesting topic about the pain point,
Mm-hmm.
because I think anytime we interrupt our natural flow, the way we're accustomed, we're quite habitual.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we might be looking forward to change, when the change happens, we're not necessarily as excited about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think acknowledging that there's discomfort and that that's natural.
Yes, yes. Um, Very much so. My very first client came with an issue that had nothing to do really with retirement.
Hmm.
But I think the pain had got so great. I had been recommended, and I think he thought, and what came out of it was just amazing. I don't think he expected to discover what was within him.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't have the answers, but and he did every exercise. He kept emailing me and I kept answering with more questions
I love
and
that. When
mhm,
we're willing to ask questions rather than tell people what to do.
yes. Yeah. Oh yes. That's been a learning. I must share that I'm the oldest of three girls,
Yeah.
and I took that role very seriously. And I very much judged my sisters, that both of them, they didn't know what they were doing with their life. So it was very controlling. I call myself Hang 'em Harriet. I judge them, execute them, like. So when I realized what I'd done in my 30s, I wrote each of them a letter acknowledging how I had treated them and how wrong I had been, and that I had not allowed them to live their own lives. Then, many years later, I found a placard that said, "I'm your sister and there's nothing you can do about it." But it did shake me up a little when they both hung it in their living rooms. It was like the first thing you would say when you walked in. But yeah. So I've really worked on Hang 'em there. Just
But I think that sort of happens, right? Because I think even our parents have expectations. Well, you're the
oh,
oldest. You're the oldest, so you should know.
yes.
You're the
Mm-hmm.
oldest, or you're the youngest, so here's the rules for you. I think there is kind of that energy in there, that expectations of parents, that
Yes, I agree.
we perform our roles.
Yes, yes. And I readily assumed it, but yeah, no, so they had that sign up. So
Oh, I love that.
I just drove my sister. She's moved, and it was a 5-day trip I drove her down there with her dogs, and she said, "I wouldn't have done this with you 5 years ago." So I know I'm getting better every day, and it
Yeah.
was delightful.
I think that's been one of my great blessings in ministry, is learning to shut up and listen.
Mhm.
Because talking is easy. Formulating answers while the other person's sharing, wanting to be right.
Mhm.
That was a big learning for me years and years and years ago, was, would I rather be right or happy? And that one took me a minute, because there was always a part of me that fiercely fought to be, in the right person, the right time, the right place. I wanted to do everything perfect.
Mhm.
And I'm not there anymore, which I'm really grateful for. And I fall on my face often, and I'm okay with that. And it's like being willing to kind of be real and vulnerable and present in life, rather than trying to control and manipulate outcomes,
Mhm.
which of course none of us can do anyway.
No.
Life is life, it's going to happen. And how we deal with that's up to us. One of my favorite things is, whatever's going on, every event is simply neutral.
Mm.
And what I think about it makes it positive or negative.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's neutral, and we may put the spin on.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
from those thoughts creates the emotion of, that's so bad, that's so terrible, or that's so exciting. It's even like me dancing in my head brought me great joy, right? I'm not dancing, but the joy was there. I love
But
that.
I want to go back to your volunteerism as you talk about it.
Yeah.
You talk about the joy it brings you, the passion that's involved. And so you found many ways to dance.
Absolutely.
And I've heard you speak about the dance of life, and yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been talking about writing a Broadway style show
Ooh.
called Dancing with the Universe.
Yes.
And I've got bits and pieces of it here, there, and everywhere. And my daughter's a musician, and uh, my son is a musician, and I have another daughter who is an artist. And I'm like, I don't know. I always thought, why would I be inspired to do this thing when I'm not a musician? But music is such a love for me. So there's a combination of music and people that like I just have a passion for humanity, and I just want it to be warm and exciting, and I'm just, what can I do to make the world, well, and not even to make it, because I have to keep going inside my head going, what if it isn't broken? What
Oh.
if it what if it just is what it is? And if I bring my joy and my love rather than my fear, doubt, and worry, if I bring my joy and my love, does that make it better? And so I just keep looking at the places where I see injustice. And then I have to go inside my own mind and go, how can I love that? And by love, I mean acceptance, right? Oneness, acceptance. We're evolving. How can I allow the space for the evolution of that idea to be birthed into something brighter? Yeah. So this all motivates and excites me. And when I think about the show, Dancing with the Universe, it's like, that's my dance of life. That's the journey that brought me through the shit to where I am now, which I'm sure there's still puddles along the way, but some roses are going to grow from it, I'm sure. At least that's the plan.
Oh dear. Yes. You mentioned that you love your work.
Yeah.
I was again doing some research, and it's called Bridging Experience, and it started before the COVID, and retirees are choosing to continue to work part-time, consulting, and they were filling the gap in employment, and then COVID hit and it all dropped. And this professor was talking about that it's starting again, but he said if we hadn't had COVID, we would not be struggling with this employment issue, because he said the retirees were really enjoying the bridging experience. Like, you don't have to have this celebration and then you're done.
Yeah.
And I'm quite enjoying what I'm doing. It took me a couple months to get into it, but I'm really enjoying it, because I enjoyed when I had my own business and was working with people. That was
Yeah. Well, and you can see it on you, and you can hear it even through the questions and the way you bring a person along. There's just a gentleness there and a clear sense of what's needed.
thank you.
And so you have created a container where people can transition from the work world to the retirement world with a greater sense of ease and grace and comfort, and continue to be remarkable, resilient, and brilliant beings, providing the wisdom and joy and stuff into the universe that we all need, right? Because all of it is necessary.
Yes.
And I think, somebody once said that the people who should be raising our children, of course, are people over 50. The ones who have them, of course, are in their 20s and 30s, but the ones who should be raising them are in their 50s or 60s, because they're the ones who have the patience and also the wisdom to know how to deal with what it is that little ones tend to do. Just we don't have the energy for it.
No, and that's my vision, is that retirees, through learning their gifts, they're going to be empowered, and they are going to impact in the retirement. Retirement is not being senior and being put out and being told, well, you've worked already, you shouldn't be working. No, I see empowered people having impact on all aspects
Yes.
of life, and especially mentorship, helping
Oh,
organizations, the youth.
yeah.
They've got all this wisdom and experience that just can impact the quality of life for people.
Yeah. And I love seeing communities that are more multi-generational.
Yes.
Right? Like, whether you take a condo complex or something and you've got retirees and you've got young families and you've got those who are, on a lower income, those on a higher, and everybody is together. And we start to realize that we're not different.
No.
We're all unique, but we all have the same needs and desires to be loved and accepted, food, water, and shelter. Like there's something about bringing all that together that creates a really sweet bridge that is one that I think we could sustain.
Yes, I totally. I have a friend that her dream is to have that, and to have a common room where we have our own place, but we come together.
Yeah.
And she says, children, elderly people, disabled, people
Yeah.
like we reflect the world, and that's it.
That's the key. That's the key.
Yes.
Instead of othering, connecting.
That's right.
And the challenge I'm seeing in our COVID recovery is the coming back together.
Oh, yes.
The coming back together. We're doing a lot of stuff like this online, and that's great. We can do that. I mean, you're in Saskatchewan, I'm in Ontario. We can be together, and I love that. But there's nothing to replace the moment when we get to be in the same room.
That's right.
That's going to be a sweet moment.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
But
going to say, please run a class in your home, and I'll come and stay around the area and come to
hey,
class.
I'm going to run classes in my home all the time.
Good.
So come on down. Yeah, it's, finding ways to bring people together. And that's why I decided, even with the classes I'm offering now, to do them in a hybrid way. Because if people can come, then that's terrific. I have to figure out how to do that in a classroom setting, especially if I only have one person in the room. So Sunday will be interesting. One person in the room and everybody else online. But I think there's something about that feels really right.
Yes.
That the more we can come together, the more we can be in the same space, the greater the opportunity for all of us to feel loved and accepted and supported wherever we are on this journey of life.
Yes.
So we're down to our last, a little over a minute and a half. Final thought. What would you like to leave everybody with today?
That it's okay to say, I don't know.
Yes.
And to reach out to someone to talk about it. And yeah, and you're not alone. You are not alone.
Exactly.
Tell you that much.
I love that. I love that. And of course, going back to the name of the show, there's just one you. So you may as well celebrate you where you are, as you are, with your gifts, your talents, your errors and flaws and faults and whatever you think is wrong with you. Just know that none of that has any fact to it. Stories you've been told. The all of you is what makes you complete. Pat, thank you. Your work is brilliant.
Thank you.
I love you, my friend. And we're going to do this again.
Thanks. Thank you,
All right,
Barbara.
everybody. Happy fall when it starts. I hope you had a great summer. I'm so glad to be back. And we'll be back here again next week when my guest is Bad Luck. Ooh, a musician for the generations. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Bye for now. You're watching the New Thought Media Network.